Yes. Okay, welcome to this extraordinary meeting of the Sandwich Town Council. Today, February the 9th, 2024. And I'm pleased to say that we are quorate. And I will turn to item 1, apologies for absence received.
Thank you, Chair. So we have apologies from Councillor Peter Breen, a personal commitment, Councillor Dean Marie, a work commitment, Councillor Ripley, a family commitment, the Mayor and Mayoress have a mayoral commitment, Councillor Mallet has a personal commitment, Councillor Franklin, a family commitment, and Councillor Chandler has sent her apologies.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda.
Thank you.
Item 3, public participation. A 20-minute session is set aside for members of the public to make representations at the meeting in respect of the business on the agenda and other matters if time permits. Are there any?
Yes, Christina has requested.
So, Councillor Black, I don't know if you're going to do the.
Oh no, I've got the time. I've got yes.
You've got it.
Yeah, I've got the cards.
That's fine.
Thank you. Right, my name is Christina Green, and I'm addressing you tonight with regard to attachment 2B, which is page 19 on the agenda. There are many inaccuracies in this document, and it appears to me that someone's trying to rewrite history to ignore the concerns about the position of bus stand B. And I haven't written a speech as such, I'm speaking direct to the document itself, which states there are no proposed changes to the layout that you currently see on site. Now, the change actually is to the TRO seeks to make the layout permanent. So that is essentially the change, not to the configuration, but to its status. It goes on to talk about the introduction of curb markings in 1 to 11 New Street. Well, that is actually the section that goes from No Name Street through to Austin's Lane, which is an error because it should really be talking about Cattle Market. The document goes on to say that Sandwich Town Council were fully consulted on the proposed adjustments to the Guildhall Square and the associated highway works. Sandwich Town Council were part of the consultation process and agreed to the final designs that had been implemented on site. Well, this is simply not true. If you look at the plans on the DDC portal, you will see that the highway works were not actually within those plans at all. And when I raised the question of why was there no consultation, why did it not go through planning at the annual town meeting, I was told by the DDC officer representing the project that there was no requirement for that to be done. So there was no requirement for consultation or agreement or planning, none of that. It was done without any consultation with STC or the public at all. The paragraph goes on to say that it meets all relevant safety standards. Now, that really references RSA 2, which requested that the bus stand B is to be moved further away from the corner, and also RSA 3, which failed to assess residual key risks, which we spoke about in the last meeting. The next paragraph says that during the main square works, STC nominated a point of contact, Councillor Peter Breen, who represented STC and its councillors. Now, Councillor Breen was elected in May 23, so he wasn't actually in office at the time of the design works. It then goes on to say Councillors Breen, Marie and Wiles met with Dover District Council and KCC upon completion of all work to discuss the highway design, and it was accepted by all present that the current design would not be changed. Now, I have spoken with councillors, I mean there's no hard and fast evidence, but what I would question is are they suggesting that those councillors with delegated authority by the council to make that decision? Because I certainly haven't been at a meeting where that's taken place. So, well, what can I say? So we then go on to say, it says that the town clerk was sent correspondence, including relating to the buses stopping short of the stop where waiting times are extended, to demonstrate that measures had been put in place and were working a year on. Well, that wasn't implemented at all. In fact, the Freedom of Information request that I submitted to DDC showed that Stagecoach had not even been asked to do that. They weren't asked to stop short, they are not stopping short, and my thinking is that that is probably not happening because DDC did not install a raised platform in the retarded position to enable them to do that. Because of course buses have to stop at a platform that allows passengers to alight and so forth, and that wasn't done in the retarded position. And basically, I mean, this letter does nothing at all to persuade me that STC should drop their objection, which I hope will be retained. Thank you very much.
I think our response will be in the body of this meeting. And those are all exceptionally useful points, which I'm sure councillors will follow up with when we come to discussion of item 5. Thank you. Item 4. This is the Parish Council Winter Support Scheme application, and the Town Clerk is to share the proposed Parish Council Winter Support Scheme application that is sponsored. Well, the Winter Support Scheme is sponsored by KCC and CALC, and the application must be approved at a full council meeting before submission. I would just like to say, before the Town Clerk introduces this, that I think the Town Clerk is to be congratulated on taking up an outside funding opportunity, which is a novelty, I think, for this council, and much appreciated, certainly, I think, by myself and I imagine by other councillors. So thank you. So if you'd like to introduce
Okay.
the issue.
Thank you, Chair. So this is, as the Chair has said, approved at a full council meeting before submission. Kent County Council has received emergency grant funding from central government, and this was something around COVID emergency grant and household support fund. And it's to be used to support efforts towards preventing or containing the spread of COVID-19 and or helping those that have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. Funding has been ring-fenced for parish councils to use for a project that provides support to Kent residents in the parish that are experiencing financial hardship as a result of cost of living crisis. So I did ask councillors Ripley and Tomlins to assist me with some of the research, because obviously I'm not familiar with the schools and other things here. So we did make contact with 4 schools in total. 2 of the schools, the Sandwich Infants and the Sandwich Junior schools, they got back to us and fed back a number of families that would be meeting the criteria. So that's where we've come up on the number of 78 hygiene packs. As you'll see in the pack I sent you, there's a list of shopping list items that would need to be purchased. And then these tote bags will be purchased as well. Everything will be brought to the Guildhall in the hub. And a case of, I will be seeking volunteers to come along and put these packs together. And then the intention is that the packs would then be delivered to the schools, and the schools will distribute them discreetly so that, you know, that there's no stigma or anything attached. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read the wording, because apologies, when I printed out this online form, you couldn't save the form to print it. So it was trying to print on the online form, and hence it missed some of the wording. So I did send you the attachment of the actual wording that I propose we use. So what is the issue? The cost of living crisis is impacting families throughout the UK. They're having to choose between essentials as the cost of energy and food continues to remain high. There has been a rise in the use of hygiene bank services that provide access to period products as well as toiletries and other essential hygiene items, including soap, toothpaste, cleaning products and nappies. Sandwich, like other parts of the UK, has a number of families that are struggling to make ends meet due to the cost of living crisis. For a family with children who are having to live on a tight budget, the purchase of hygiene products can be regarded as expensive and sometimes even a luxury item. Several organisations in the town run community-based activities to help support families in need, but this provision of hygiene products is not currently obviously included anywhere. It's not obvious to me. The Town Council wants to address this gap and make a real difference to those local families in need that will benefit the most from receiving the hygiene products, with a particular focus of improving the lives of young women and girls within our community through the provision of period products, which is one of the items. Then it goes on to give you a bit of a snapshot about period poverty, which is a global issue. When we talk about, at the end of that paragraph, the Town Council are supporting this initiative, which could potentially be funded via the Winter Support Scheme. So that's the idea. So the impact. The Town Council is proposing a community-based scheme which targets the most vulnerable families with children in Sandwich that would benefit from the provision of hygiene products. A particular focus on improving the lives of young women and girls within our community will tackle a problem that is usually hidden from others by delivering a practical solution in a sensitive manner. The Town Council has reached out to the local schools to assess the demand, and the evidence provided has informed the basis of the scheme that is being proposed. The council will link up with 2 schools, as I've said, and they will work to support 78 families who have been identified as vulnerable to the cost of living crisis and who will benefit from these products. This scheme is a true collaboration between the Town Council and the 2 schools, with a clear aim of making a real difference for some of the most vulnerable families in our town. Safeguards will be agreed between the Town Council and the 2 schools to ensure all steps undertaken to deliver this scheme will be completed discreetly, and the hygiene packs will be purchased and prepared by the Town Council for distribution, and they will be handed across to each school for their onward allocation to the families identified as most in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Got any comments? Yes, Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. I just want to pick up on that phrase that they will be purchased and packed by the Town Council. Usually funding applications, I think, are to an organisation which will deliver the product themselves. And I just wondered what people had in mind when they talked about packing and purchasing.
Yes, so these items will need to be purchased from bookers because we want them in such large volumes. They'll have to be delivered to the Guildhall and some of the items as well through Amazon. But then we need to actually physically put the products into individual packs. So it's not too time consuming. Actually, the more people that are involved, the better. It's a nice thing to do, and it's actually part of the process.
Councillor Tommy.
I just wanted to say, having been involved and having contacted the school, they nearly bit our hands off. It was really good. They were really pleased. They were positively responsive and, pleasantly surprised that we were actually reaching out with this initiative. So I hope there'll be future initiatives that we can consider engaging with the school with.
Yes, mine just very quickly. I support this initiative completely. The funding's available, we're applying for it, hopefully we're successful, and then we'll do it. So it's a simple process, and hopefully we'll be successful at it, and it will make a difference, so fully support it.
Councillor Moorman.
Yes, we've made thank you, Chair. We've made a mention here about the cost of energy and food, but what about putting in that wording, high interest rates, high inflation, and the fact that this government is taxing working people into exhaustion and stagnation?
Yeah. And I think we can add a little bit of wording, but I think the intention is that we're not here making political statements. It's about the funding opportunity. But thank you. I take those comments on board.
But I think the interest rates and the inflation.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I can have that. Thank you.
I've got a comment as well. I looked at the shopping list, and I wasn't totally convinced that it was wholly appropriate for infants and junior, particularly the inclusion of shaving materials, I noticed. So I don't know if you could revise the shopping list.
Yeah, so it's intended to be the whole family. It's not
Okay.
just the children. It's for the
Okay.
whole family. Yes, it's the whole family household.
I think it might be useful to point that out actually,
Yes.
because people nitpick.
Yes.
And
Okay.
it doesn't look convincing.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? So do I have a proposal that we submit this application with the changes that have been suggested,
Mhm.
which have been noted by the town
Yes.
clerk? So, Councillor Tomlins, are you proposing?
Proposed.
Councillor Shooter, second. And can you all vote, please? So all in
Unanimous.
favour?
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we turn to item 5, which is the traffic regulation order cattle market update, and 2 attachments, attachment 2A and 2B. And we've also been sent by a separate email the original consultation documents, which include a map, and the map that was sent to us as part of the consultation document. And I would just like to say make one or two comments, because I was one of the 3 councillors that did the site visit and wrote the response. Their map calls the cattle market New Street, and that is an essential misunderstanding and an indication. I think it's fair to say we felt that they didn't really understand what the situation is. We actually commented under proposal 2, mistakenly, I think, because we didn't look at what they call 1 to 11 New Street. We thought they're talking about No Name Street, so we commented on No Name Street. So it is possible that we might want to withdraw our comment on proposal 2, but I would be subject to correction about that. The second point I wanted to make is that they don't seem to have got it at all. They're talking about enforcement of parking regulations and thus speeding up the traffic flow. That seems to me to be their main objective. Whereas I think the feeling in the town is that what's gone wrong are the sight lines, and the sight lines are rather more important than speeding up the traffic flow, because the sight lines are particularly bad when a bus is parked at the bus stand, and they take no account of that at all in their response. And finally, they are suggesting, basically, as far as I can see in their letter, that we withdraw our objection. And I'm very pleased that this extraordinary meeting has been called in order to make a decision as to whether we withdraw our objection. And it seems to me that we could do a number of things. We could amplify our objection, saying that their proposals don't resolve the crucial problem. We could ask further questions about, for example, enforcement. How are they going to enforce enforcement, since enforcement of parking regulations doesn't fall within the KCC remit? It's a DDC function. And what approach have they made to DDC about enforcing parking regulations? And thirdly, they take no account of the safety audits which have been mentioned by the Sandwich resident, Christina Glynn, particularly number 3, which we know was not considered properly. So it seems to me that we have a number of options and that we should consider them all carefully, as well as the objections which Christina Glynn has already offered us. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. Yes, I was one of the group that with Councillor Henderson, and we struggled with their, sorry, I wouldn't even call it a map, it was a fantasy. And I'll use that term because I have been a cartographer. I think that they've got so many things wrong in this. The fundamental problem is still the bus stop. And we know that that's a constriction, we know it's affecting sightlines and so on. And if buses have to park there for any length of time for crew purposes, which they have to, and also to keep the timetable, you're not going to move it away. There's always going to be a problem. The issue about whether we confused numbers 1 to 11 with New Street, I think is actually not so important.
No name street.
But with no name street, sorry, no name street, my apologies. Because they're proposing basically to take away a loading bay which is used. We actually propose a second loading bay which would be much better in no name street, because that would address the reality that if you go there any day, you'll see that there's at least one waste disposal truck parked there, but other people have to make deliveries. If they move the loading bay from numbers 1 to 11 to this side of the road, basically opposite Amigos and the Mermaid, you've got an unsafe crossing, you've got no drop curb for a long distance, and you're asking people to move trolleys of goods across a flow of traffic. So we may have got one little bit wrong in a very confusing map. Nevertheless, we fundamentally got it right in our proposal, I suggest.
I don't want to dominate, but I don't think they are proposing to remove that loading bay. Because if you look at the loading bay outside the waiting room, if you look at what they think are 1 to 11 New Street, number 1 is Oss's, not the waiting room. So I think they're proposing to retain that loading bay and by curb markings, introduce an element of enforcement which isn't there at the moment, although there are double yellow lines already between 1 and 11 New Street. Councillor Shooter.
I've sort of approached it from a slightly different direction. Sorry, I'm using travel inferences, but what we've got in front of us is a response, a letter. And I'm not even sure whether this individual who's written this letter is the person that will have been the key person in the project. If they were, that's fine. They may not be. But what we've been served up here is a letter. We've been told that we've already put in our comments to the consultation. That date has passed. So that's our response. We can spend an hour here going through all of the issues about it, and those won't go away. But what we have done already at STC on the 29th of January, we have said there is an action for us to get the 3 key parties together against the risk assessment that was produced and presented to us that we're not content with. So that's one line of activity that we said we want to pursue. This letter says they will not accept any more comments. So they've got our response. It's just simply, are we withdrawing it or are we not? Even if there's some nuances or some tweaking, I think that's irrelevant to this discussion, because from my perspective, the consultation, I've read it, I think it's reasonable in terms of its arguments. We say it stays in there. There will be a subsequent activity which will allow us to engage with them, hopefully, around what they're going to respond on. But today they're saying they do not want anything else from us apart from a yes or no.
Councillor Wells, do you want to?
Yeah, that's my understanding is that there are no changes proposed in this. What's there is what's proposed.
Yeah.
And that's their final position. So I think all along we as a council have opposed that configuration. I was particularly upset with the email dated the 2nd, which says that at the meeting with myself, Councillor Breen and Councillor Marie, it was accepted by all present that the current design would not be changed. I mean, that's certainly not my recollection of that meeting. We, certainly myself and Councillor Marie, I can't speak for Councillor Breen, we said this was a dangerous configuration and that it should be changed. if there was any acceptance, it was on our part that they were not listening. But we didn't accept the design. That was quite clearly not our position. And as Christina said, we had no authority to speak on behalf of the council in any case. So this council, in my view, is that what's there is not acceptable to this council, and we should maintain our objection because it's been there how long now? 9 months or so. No one's been knocked over or injured, but there've been many near misses. And at some point, I think there will be an accident there. And, you know, at that point, we can say, well, we did object, but you didn't listen.
We have basically two councillors who have said, putting forward a proposal, I'm assuming, that we vote as to whether to maintain our objection, the objection as was written by Councillor Black, Councillor Ripley and myself, or allow it to fall. So is that the proposal?
I'd like to propose that we agree as a council that we put forward and maintain the objection to that TRO.
Second.
The Executive Council.
Thank you. Chris, Councillor Wells.
Yeah, I'd also like to mention that this is a KCC matter. Highways are KCC responsibilities. We have a KCC councillor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absent without leave, and you know what's happening with that person.
Yes, I think that's another issue, but it is.
Yes, it's pertinent.
Yes, it is, definitely. I also think that KCC is assuming that this enforcement, which they think will be the consequence of curb markings in addition to double yellows, but they have no responsibility for enforcement. So I would like to know what they're saying to DDC about how they are going to enforce this. But we have a proposal from Councillor Suker. Has anybody seconding that? Councillor Morehouse. And the proposal is that we maintain our objection as outlined in the initial response. All those in favour, please vote.
Unanimous.
Thank you. So there's the change of motion.
Next meeting.
So the date of the next, item 7 is the date of the next full council meeting, which is the 26th of February 2024. Thank you very much, and I'm going to bang this.
Meeting by 7:30. Thank you.
It's been
Yes.